My husband cheated and left me. When I told him he couldn't have my stuff, he laughed and said he didn't want any of it. But on moving day, they realized what that meant. Once I had written the divorce papers, Packer thought quickly, "Get out of my house." My husband sneered provocatively. Beside him, his mistress was dreamily looking around the house. "Wow, all this high-end furniture. How lovely. It's a house that fits me perfectly." I felt the twinge of those words and reminded my husband, "Just so you know, I'm taking all my personal things with me on moving day." "Okay then," my husband replied, looking at me as if he was about to burst out laughing. Of course. If your stuff was left behind, it would just remind me of the miserable days we've had so far." Apparently, he still didn't understand the true meaning of my words. I thought, just watch. Make sure you don't regret it later. My name is Karen. I'm a 26-year-old interior coordinator. My husband, Joseph, is 31 and works in the construction industry. We met through our shared hobby of DIY projects and had been married for a quick 3 years. At first, we cared deeply for each other, but now I feel grateful we didn't have children. The reason is that Joseph has become too self-indulgent. After coming home, he carelessly takes off his coat, eats the meal I've prepared while complaining, doesn't even clean up, and retreats to his room. Before marriage, we made various agreements, one of them being shared household chores. Joseph and I decided to split them equally, but now I'm taking on almost all of the housework. When I pointed out that he should do his share, he came up with an incredible excuse. Housework is easy, so it's natural for women to do it. Men have to take responsibility for work, so I don't want to do all this. This rigid opinion was one he had never voiced before marriage. The fact that I earned more than Joseph also played a part in him turning against me. By the time I reached Joseph's age, I was planning to be independent and should be able to increase my income even more. Perhaps resenting that, Joseph contributed only the bare minimum of his earnings to the house without saving, spending his money however he liked. He was so reckless with money that I warned him repeatedly, but he stubbornly refused to change. My hard-earned money. How greedy could he be to still want more? Not content with just that, he exaggerated to his co-workers, painting me as an outrageous miser to win their sympathy. It was Joseph's apparent generosity with money and the perception of domestic unrest that attracted his affair partner, Linda. She's a 24-year-old temporary employee at Joseph's company. There are few young men at his workplace, and even though slightly older are still considered young, which likely made 31-year-old Joseph catch her eye. "Gosh, Joseph, if I had a handsome husband like you, I'd take care of him forever," she'd said, making him quickly infatuated. I discovered Joseph's infidelity about 6 months ago, just when the affair had begun. One day, an unknown woman called Joseph's mobile phone. When I searched for her name on social media, I found Linda. She posted things like, "Today's date with my future husband at a fancy restaurant. I'm so nervous since it's my first time," along with photos of a man unmistakably Joseph. I saved all of them and also retrieved their exchanges from Joseph's phone. From the dates, conversations, and details about the places they visited, there was no doubt that he was cheating. When I found out about his infidelity, I felt neither anger nor sadness, only emptiness. I understood that getting lectured when coming home tired wasn't pleasant, but all those discussions were necessary for our future. Maybe it was harsh, but to have an affair just because you're fed up with family life after only 3 years. I sighed heavily. Certainly, I couldn't afford to be down and do nothing. I had been working hard, believing compromise was necessary between us, but I couldn't tolerate the cheating anymore. I decided to divorce him and started looking for a lawyer. A month later, on a Saturday, I brought Joseph and Linda together for a discussion. Naturally, they were shocked when I contacted Linda. They probably never expected me to find out. Yet Linda, thrilled about the marriage, didn't apologize or attempt to justify the affair. Instead, she cheerfully asked, "Karen, are you really okay with this unprecedented compensation?" I calmly replied, "That's right. Joseph and I decided before marriage not to divide our assets." At that moment, Linda held hands with Joseph and celebrated. Yes, Joseph and I had agreed that, in the event of a divorce, there would be no division of assets, and the compensation I would receive would be minimal. Since I was working, I didn't mind that part. But what made me furious was their complete lack of remorse for the adultery. How wonderful to live in such a stylish house filled with high-end brands. The appliances are the latest too. It's just the perfect house for me, Linda said, causing a strange sensation to creep over me. As I handed over the divorce papers, I reconfirmed something with Joseph. Even during our marriage, there's no division of the things I bought. I'm taking all my personal belongings with me. You understand that, right? Seemingly not understanding, Joseph paused and then spoke. It's obvious your plain clothes and bags wouldn't suit young Linda anyway. I have to buy her better things. If you leave your belongings here, they'll just be a reminder of the painful days we had together. It seemed he thought I was talking about clothing and other personal items, and it was easier to let him believe that than to start an argument. Tomorrow, the movers will take everything, so be prepared, I said, but they were already ignoring me, too busy admiring the house's interior. The next morning, they came to see me off as if they were hurrying me to leave. Ignoring them, I waited for the moving company's arrival. Then, right on time, a large truck arrived. The workers energetically called out to me, "Thank you for choosing us today. We have another truck waiting nearby, so please don't worry." Linda, with a clouded expression, hesitated as she approached me. "Do you have that many personal belongings?" I held back a laugh and barely managed to answer. "The house itself belongs to Joseph, but all the appliances and furniture are mine. That's why I said there would be no division of property." Hearing that, Joseph rushed over to me, his face turning bright red. "All of the furniture and appliances are mine. They had been in this house for 3 years. Just take your stuff and get out quickly," Joseph demanded. I had reached my limit and finally burst out laughing. He truly didn't understand what no division of property meant. Just because he'd been living in the house for a few years, he thought it was his. He must be joking. "Hey, you're not really planning to take everything, are you?" Joseph, perhaps panicked by my attitude, lowered his voice to check with me. Meanwhile, the movers continued steadily transporting the furniture. "Don't worry," I replied. "The only memories of living with you I'll leave behind." At that, Joseph ran to the study in a panic. I always kept copies of receipts there, so he must have gone to check which pieces of furniture were being taken, but his search was in vain. There wasn't a single piece of his furniture or appliances in this house. Joseph had inherited the house from his parents, who owned it as a rental property. Not wanting to spend on personal items, he had furnished it with second-hand furniture and appliances. When we got married, he disposed of all the furniture he had, so I bought everything. Naturally, as an interior coordinator, I chose luxurious, famous brand items and carefully arranged them for a visually pleasing atmosphere. The upscale furniture made the house look opulent, far from its second-hand origins. Even if I say so myself, Linda, my husband's affair partner, couldn't help but be enchanted as she looked around. Joseph returned with a pale face as the movers were finishing up, leaving not a speck of dust behind. "This is terrible," Linda cried. "I can't believe this is happening." A worker looked around the house and asked with concern, "The house is empty now. Are you sure this is okay?" "Yes," I replied. "Since I'm moving out, I'm taking everything I bought with my own money. Please deliver it to my parents' new address." The movers loaded the last items and drove off briskly. "Hey, I didn't hear about this. What are you going to do?" Linda continued to yell, but then a car pulled up, catching her off guard. "Wait! Who's coming now? What are you plotting?" she demanded, looking utterly bewildered. "Karen, it's been a while. Is it true you're giving me the wallpaper?" A friend of mine emerged from the car. "That's right. The wallpaper too," I said. It had been custom made by a designer friend, and I had paid for it. Since the wallpaper was reusable with a bit of maintenance, it could be used again without any issues. You're going to peel off the wallpaper too." Linda stared at me in disbelief, but my friend simply shrugged and began removing it. "Please, can you at least leave that alone?" Joseph pleaded, but I ignored him. "If you see my belongings left behind, you'll be reminded of me, and that's unpleasant, right?" "So I decided to give it all to my friend," I replied, watching as he grew confused and panicked. Without the tasteful furniture, appliances, or even wallpaper, the house now looked older than it actually was. For Joseph and Linda, who had dreamed of a life in a stylish home, this was a harsh reality. They seemed too drained to argue as they stood dumbfounded, watching me leave with a smile. I used the furniture and appliances in my new home initially, but soon got tired of them, knowing Joseph had used them, so I contacted a friend who worked as a buyer to sell them. Fortunately, they were in excellent condition and sold for a higher price than I expected. As I pondered what kind of furniture to buy next and how to arrange it, I got a call from Joseph. "Linda won't stop going on about how you arranged the furniture. Can you come by the house once?" he asked, though I didn't want to meet them. My curiosity as an interior coordinator went up. I wondered what kind of furniture they had chosen and what design ideas they had in mind. "All right, I'll go just to hear what you have to say," I agreed. "Really? Remember, you promised," Joseph exclaimed with apparent relief before hanging up. On the promised day, I arrived and was shocked. They hadn't even repapered the walls. The furniture and appliances were clearly second-hand items from bargain stores. It looked like a cheap apartment a student might rent. A whole month had passed since we parted, and this was beyond disappointing. "What is this?" I stammered, unable to hide my disbelief. Linda, taking it as an insult, exploded with anger. "We gathered this stuff just to live for now. We'll replace it soon." Since you took everything, use your connections or whatever to make this a house we can brag about. She was clearly unhappy living with secondhand furniture, frustrated throughout our conversation, but the budget they offered was nowhere near enough for my services. "What's this? You're a talented coordinator, but you can't do this. You're useless," Linda snapped, indignant. "No matter how skilled a coordinator is, I can't do much with such a limited budget. This is ridiculous. And it's way beyond connections," I explained, feeling stumped, but she was serious about wanting me to arrange high-end furniture and appliances on such a tight budget. Linda, now fully exasperated, finally erupted. "Did you come here just to look down on me? If you don't like it, I'll leave," I replied. "But if you want to furnish your home on that budget, you should at least polish your interior sense." "You really are mocking me," Linda yelled. "Just because you have a fashionable job. Don't get overconfident." Hey, stop it." Joseph tried to calm Linda down, looking exhausted. "Linda, please be quiet. I'm sorry for the noise," he added, weary. "After everything, I had to marry Linda. But as you can see, she's always angry, and it's tough every day," he confessed with a tired voice. He went on to explain how they fought constantly in the now empty house. Linda had quit her job for the marriage and hadn't told her parents, leaving her with nowhere to go. He admitted that he had married her out of convenience, hoping she'd handle the housework, but such a marriage was doomed, and he had already given up. "Karen, please help me fix our relationship again," he begged. I was taken aback and responded, annoyed. "What's this? Planning to cheat on me next?" "No, the thing with Linda was just confusion. After you left, I realized no one is more wonderful than you, Karen." "You're not serious, are you?" I exclaimed. "You're the one who told me to get out of this house, right? I divorced you just like you wanted. You can't possibly expect me to change my mind now." "Please, Karen, don't call me by my first name so casually. This rundown house is your chosen castle with your affair partner. You two should get along together," I said firmly, ignoring Joseph's "please." I quickly left the house. Later, I heard that both Joseph and Linda had begged their parents to help furnish the house, only to be disowned. No one would support her, forgiving them for marrying after an affair. So, reluctantly, they continued to live in the second-hand house. I couldn't muster any sympathy for them. It was the result of their own choices. As for me, I recently met a male interior designer through work. We've been going out often on weekends, though I've been cautious about dating. Maybe it's time to think about starting a new life. With those thoughts in mind, I'm off on another date today.